since coming into this, I've learned more than I ever want to know, but I feel obligated to try and help other people maneuver their way through this maze of garbage that we all seem to be faced with. I want to spend some time on what's happening. I chose to use computer fraud as the focus because we're seeing every type of fraud showing up in two major areas. One is through the computer, obviously, which is what I'm focused on here, but the other is on the telephone. We end up getting call after call after call. I don't know if you folks have been enjoying those calls, but I'm sure everybody's been receiving them. And it's basically because more people are spending more time at home, and that gives con artists a great opportunity to try and reach out to people. Typical minute on the internet looks like this. Now, one of the things we know is that con artists like to deal with people when there's a very confusing environment. And looking at this, you can see that between shopping, browsing, looking at videos, sending emails, all of this is taking place every minute of every day worldwide. So realize that, you know, it's not something that's random. It's very well planned when a con artist decides to make their move on individuals. On the computer, there are three basic ways that con artists operate. One is by email message, and we'll look at a couple of those. Imposter websites, where they create a website that looks very realistic, only it's designed to feed your information to them, and then hot links or Trojan horses or pop-up windows. Fraud is based on some very clear psychology. One thing that is apparent in almost all cases of scams and fraud is there's an element of greed. And in reality, that greed can be a two-way street. It can be greed on the part of the criminal who is trying to get your money. But quite often, the criminal's approach is to wave money in front of you or a prize in front of you. And as a result, you bite at it and you give them your money for something that you didn't expect. Three other things that show up a lot. One's called impersonation. One of our favorite scams that we deal with constantly is called the grandparent scam. This is where somebody gets a phone call from a muffled voice. It sounds something like this. Grandma, I'm in jail in Montreal and I need your help. Send money. Okay. And don't tell my folks. Okay. That's an impersonation scam. Another one is, this is the IRS calling. And we see probably more of that than any other scam in Vermont. It's not a very successful one. Most people don't buy a voice with a South Asian accent saying that they work for the IRS. Projected authority. If, as the criminal, I can make you think I'm something that I'm not, somebody in authority, an FBI agent, an IRS agent, a doctor, you're more likely to respond to me with those types of persona. And then finally, threats and intimidation. If I can't get you the nice way, then my next step is I'll come up with something to threaten you. And that may be, I'm going to come and burn your house down. Well, you don't know where I live. Yes, I do. You know how they know? Anybody? Google Earth. All you have to do is find somebody's address, plug it into Google Earth, and you can display their house right on the screen. We see a lot of criminals using that approach in order to scare people. Why? Why are computers targeted? Well, there are many reasons, but first of all, computers today are commodity items. You can buy something for $100 on the internet that basically is a low-end computer. You know, you compare that to 30, 40 years ago, and you couldn't do it. Computers are as commonly found in homes or let's say not just computers, but tablets, as much as toasters, TV sets, other commodities that you may have purchased. And then because they're fairly easy to use, all the computer companies say, all you have to do is plug and play or something similar to that. And because they're inexpensive, a lot of people buy computers because they want to do particular things, which brings us to number 3. What I found in my research is most computer users tend to be somewhat naive. And this seems to be by and large all across all age groups, because they're using a computer, they feel they are truly a computer user. What they are is an application user. I know how to use, let's say, Facebook. I know how to use my email account. I know how to shop online with Google, Amazon. But you don't know how to run a computer. So that's why I say many computer users, most, are naive because they don't know what that piece of equipment really does. All they know is how to do relatively few things. And then finally, the information that I would need to defraud you is right out there. It's on the internet. Number 1 crime is identity theft. And that's when it starts with somebody committing a data breach, getting into private information that's stored online. It can be done intentionally where somebody goes out and hacks the account, or you provide information when you don't realize you're giving it away. Data breaches occur all the time. Here's just a sampling of some of them. And by the way, you'll be getting all of these slides and some other ones as an email later on. Here's some of the companies. You're probably familiar with many of these. So if you see things that you recognize, places that you may have an account, U.S. Census Bureau has your information, the IRS does, or you've used a credit card at one of these businesses, your information is compromised. It's not whether or not it's been stolen or there's been identity theft here, it's how many times. Yahoo's the big culprit on the block here. 3, that is, billion accounts were hacked. Identity theft now takes us one step further, and what it does is it moves from the information being available to the information being used. And typically, it's either to do harm to a person or it's to steal money. So what's available out there? Here's the list. I'm just going to move on to the next slide. But you can see that a lot of information is readily available. If you're unsure about whether that's true, next time you're on the computer, Google your name and see what you find out about yourself that you may not even think is out there. What's available? We saw that, but basically demographics, address, personal data, photographs, a lot of other things, and most of it is free. Here's an example of one of the types of scam emails that can come out. This one was sent to me not too long ago, last year, and it looks like FedEx. They want to inform me about a package. If I click where it says update my address, all of those little boxes with FedEx in it are different addresses. And you can see that I'm going to be sending my information to all of those places, not to FedEx. But this is how criminals disguise what information is being used and what information is being sent. Here's one that came across not too long ago. In fact, this was just the other day. And it's U.S. bank customers. You get a $50 offer. And remember, I said greed is a big motivator. Some people, $50 is a lot of money, and they get greedy about it, and they want that $50. And all you have to do to get this reward is take a simple quiz. Sounds good. Think I'll do that. But there's some small print on the bottom, and most of us don't read that stuff. Here's what it says. This program isn't endorsed, sponsored, or affiliated with the merchants listed. So They're using somebody else's identity, a company's identity, to fool you in a way into giving them information. It's an independent survey. Well, let's see what happens when you click. The top circle, the red circle, is the URL. That's the email, that's the address of this particular website. But it isn't just this website. This is the information that's in that URL about me. It says I'm in Brattleboro. I'm using a desktop computer. The browser that I'm using is a version 13.1. It tells what my computer is. It's a Mac. It tells what the operating system is, tells me what country, tells me who's providing me with my internet service. That's all going to that individual or that company as soon as I click the link. So we tell people, beware of what you're clicking. By the way, I used what's called a VPN, a virtual private network, and when I wasn't using it, that's the information that came out when I had that showing. Using the VPN, this is what came up. It blocked my address. They couldn't get any information about me. Here's another example. Note from Xfinity. Well, I use Xfinity Comcast service. There's a problem here. Important message. View my account. I click on that. Whoa. Okay. I enter my email and my password. I just created some foolishness here, arf@gmail.net, and woof woof as a password. Click. And now they have that, and they've actually put me on the real Xfinity website. But what they've been able to retrieve is my email address and my password to get into my Comcast account. They can now steal from me through that, redirect my emails, do a lot of damage. So again, you need to be very careful when you're completing forms and making sure they are legitimate. And by the way, if you look at the very top of the screen, if this was really from Comcast, that would say Comcast.net or Xfinity. It's a GoDaddy created website where they just imported the graphics for Comcast, put that copyright at the bottom, makes it look like Comcast, and it isn't. So what do you do to stop? Well, first of all, keep in mind everything you do and everything you say online is being recorded somewhere or somehow. Do you ever wonder how those, how when you're browsing all of a sudden, you see these ads for things that you were just looking for? This is how it happens. It's read and it's translated through Google to provide somebody with the information that you're looking for. Car tires, a new vehicle, and it shows up. If something's offered to you at no cost, you're the consumer. You're not the product. So to prevent it, don't make a buying decision in a heightened state or emotional state because you're not thinking rational. So you need to be able to back away and come back to the decision making. Ask questions. If you can't ask them directly, don't consider whatever it is, because most often it's the criminal who asks the questions, not the victim. Read about whatever you're going to purchase if you're purchasing online. Don't take a chance. Many people get caught because they haven't read what they're buying. And develop a script to stop unwanted interactions. With a computer, just trash or put in the junk folder the email. If it's on the phone, hang up. It's difficult for those of us who were raised to be polite. Hanging up seems very rude, and many people can't do that. Protect your Social Security number and other information like Medicare numbers. Monitor your bills and financial statements. If you're making investments, you can go to smartcheck.gov, which is a federal website, or the Vermont Department of Financial Regulation. Watch your credit reports. You're now eligible to get copies of your credit reports from the 3 major bureaus every week. No charge. Activate credit freezes. You can put a freeze on your credit reports so others can't see it. The number one way that criminals are able to open new accounts is that they end up, I gotta put that phone away. They end up getting your information and then going online to your credit report. So you don't want the credit report to be available to other folks, except when you want to use it, so get a freeze. Protect PINs and passwords. Don't recycle papers with account numbers. Protect your information online, and there are ways to, I'm not going to go through all the bullets, but you'll get this on an email. Verify charities. We find that in an age like today with coronavirus, there are new charities popping up to provide help to victims. Beware. You can check out charities to find out if they're legit. Go to the AARP Fraud Watch Network website. A lot of information there, including hot spot maps. Here it's blue, but they show you where the latest scams have been reported in the country. I'm sending you along a list of fraud alert sites. You can go to these, request or fill in a form that they will send you the current fraud alerts free of charge. And I also have the credit bureau info, so you can contact the credit bureaus, and then some of the agencies in federal government and in the state of Vermont that you can report fraud to. So critical, don't respond to alerts by using contacts that somebody's provided. Don't unsubscribe. All you're doing is you're telling the criminal you're a real person, and now they have your email address. Same thing's true, by the way, with telephone calls. If it says press 1 to be taken off our list, don't do that. All you're doing is you're guaranteeing more calls. Don't use social media to tell everything about yourself. That's the number one place that criminals look to get your info. And don't conduct personal financial business on a public Wi-Fi system like McDonald's or someplace like that, or on a public computer. I'm going to skip that and go to the last set of recommendations. Make sure your computer is up to date. Watch what you post in social media. Look for the icon of a padlock or the letters HTTPS in the address line of a web page. That tells you it's a secure page. And then use a virtual personal network to protect your communications. I'm going to go back through this later, but it's important to continue your education. This is a fluid environment, and criminals are constantly adapting to what's going on in the world. So you need to continually educate yourself. AARP has a hotline, 877-908-3360. We also have a website, and you can go to those, and the hotline is open until 11 p.m. It's staffed by trained volunteers who can help you work through an issue that you think is fraudulent. So with that, I've ended my formal presentation. I'm going to take it off the screen share. Again, I will be providing all of this information to you, so you didn't need to write things down, and I'm stopping share.
Great. Thanks. Yeah. And people want to have some questions. I'm sure, people here have experienced these things. And Jerry, I think you had your hand up, then Doug.
Unmute, please.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you. You can sell Comcast or whatever. I can hear you now.
Are these password protection forms like LastPass and any of those things any good?
They are excellent. The only drawback is if you forget the password to get into the password vault,
Right.
you've got to re-enter everything again.
Okay.
That's the number one complaint. But password protection through 1Pass or the other software is an excellent thing to use. It has, most people's passwords are really not that good. Things like the number one password in the United States is the word password. Doesn't really, something like a quarter of the computers in the country use password, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That, the best thing to do is create a phrase, mix in numbers and symbols. And by the way, the length of your password is what's critical. The best password is 14 to 16 characters. Well, actually, it's 32, but nobody's going to do 32 characters. But 14 to 16, it's very difficult to break. A typical 8-character password can be broken in anywhere from 20 to 90 seconds.
Oh. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Rod.
Elliot, I have Earthlink. And when I get something that I think is fraudulent, or even if I just get it and it's just junk, I send it to fraud@earthlink.com or .net. Is there someplace else to send that stuff?
You can report them to the state or the federal government. There's nothing they're going to do other than collect the fact that there are these scams, which is important in itself. Numbers can amaze people. But whenever I get, like the ones that I showed you, the one that had the GoDaddy website being used, they weren't using a GoDaddy email. They were using, Comcast. So I notify Comcast that there's a fraudulent account, and I notify GoDaddy. And both of them have been very responsive. It happens not just on GoDaddy, it happens on almost every one of the free website builders. And what I do is I notify them, and within a day, usually within an hour or two, they've disabled the account. And that way somebody else isn't going to get it and possibly get scammed. So yeah, report it to whoever the provider is. I always urge people on your email accounts, use the email account that's provided by your internet provider. Don't use Hotmail, don't use Ymail, Yahoo, don't use Gmail. They're free. Well, guess what? If it's free, remember my quotation? If it's free, you're not buying something, you're being sold. So even though the providers will use your data, they're more rigorous at protecting you because you're paying for the service, and they don't want you to badmouth them. Google doesn't care. The other thing that I always try to tell people is, if you got a problem coming through like on your computer and you don't know what to do, don't expect Microsoft, Apple to reach out to you saying, sir, there's a problem on your computer and we'd like to fix it for you. All you have to do is give us $200 in gift cards. No, they don't do that. In reality, Microsoft, Apple, they don't care. The only time they're going to do anything, and Microsoft's notorious for this, is when they get 20 or 30,000 complaints, then they issue a patch. Apple's a little quicker on responding, but yeah, that's a real difficulty because people think, Apple's watching over your shoulder if you have an Apple device. No, they're not. They have better things to do. So, yes. Number
Two quick.
873.
Doug.
Oh, two questions. Every time we get a new president in our Rotary Club, his account is hacked, and she sends out all sorts of messages, help, call me. And secondly, what was the second? I forgot the second thing already, so forget it.
Yeah, the best way of not being hacked is to be very vigilant as far as your email account. For example, I go into my Comcast accounts. I have about 7 or 8 email accounts that I use for different purposes. Some of them are purposely there to draw scammers so that I can get examples that I can use in presentations. But on, for instance, Comcast, I can go into the account and find out if somebody else has gotten into my account and is forwarding my emails to them. That's pretty dangerous. So, yeah, you have to be vigilant. You have to make sure that you're using a provider-based email account and not a Gmail or Ymail account. And by the way, I get about 300 emails a day, and of that, some of it goes directly into my spam folder. Almost every email, and that can be as much as 75 a day, is on my Gmail accounts. So that tells me something. I get 2 or 3 on Comcast. I get maybe 1 once in a while on my Apple computer account, and I don't get any on my AARP account. So it tells me something.
Rod, did you have another question?
Yeah, Elliot, you might want to stress to people the credit freeze idea. Because I got onto that years ago from actually Clark Howard, who's on the radio and so forth and so on. But I just put permanent credit freezes on all my accounts. It's a pain in the butt, really, when you go to buy something, but I don't really need to access the credit bureau all that much.
The only time that your credit report needs to be accessed is if you're seeking credit or mortgage, major purchases, so that the seller can investigate. And to lift the credit freeze is as simple as a phone call or one login. So you want to find out if, let's say you're going to lease a car and you know that you want a Chevy, and you go to the Chevy dealer and they're going to want to do a credit check, find out what the credit bureau is that they use, and you can lift that account for a single purpose. And that's it. I should explain, I do about 4 different presentations, and I have one on identity theft. They're all about an hour long, so I tried to condense a lot of stuff in this, and I knew that I wasn't going to make it. But you're going to get the slide notes, and that should fill you in. But I do a major piece in the identity theft program on getting a credit freeze and what to look for in your credit report. People get the credit report and they have no idea what to do with it. Well, that's good, thank you, and they put it away. And they don't know what they should be watching for. So, that goes into the identity theft program. We have a full cyber fraud program that we do. And I've just delivered a series of programs at Dartmouth Hitchcock to their senior services group. And I just go through the whole presentation. As I said, it's about an hour long, and then it goes to about an hour and a quarter with questions. So I invite you to ask me to speak, because I keep talking anyway, and I'd be happy to do a presentation to a group of 2. I would even do 1, I think. I'll have to think about that one. But I enjoy doing this. It's become a passion for me, and I've done groups as small as 2 and as large as about 250. So I'm fairly technology literate. I've been working with computers since 1980. They were a little different then than they are today. I don't know what I did with all my punch cards, but I'm sure I have them somewhere in a box or boxes.
Good
So,
note cards.
but we do the presentations. We're always looking for people who are concerned, who want to become volunteers. Even though we're in the age of COVID, we have a lot of things that we can do. Example, you may have read my columns in the Bennington Banner. I have a 10 newspaper consortium that I have created that get my columns every 2 weeks. You may have seen my Cat V television show called Mr. Scammer. It's produced by GNAT up in Sunderland, and they distribute it to everywhere in the state. And I know that it's appeared probably at 3 in the morning on your local community access channel because they're trying to fill the space. But it's very easy to go to GNAT and you can see the past shows. My most recent was a half-hour interview with TJ Donovan. So, and I've also interviewed Patrick Brown, who owns Brown Computer Services in Bennington. So.
A lot of good stuff. And I did check out one of your videos before we hopped on here. And yeah, it's right on. It's very easy to find and a lot of good stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have a viewer. Yes.
Yeah. And, you know, the one thing I mentioned is previously is, you know, no one is too smart to be scammed by this stuff. And so you think, well, I'm an educated person. I would never fall for that. But of course, what happened in 2015, 2016 was John Podesta, head of the DNC, fell for one of these scams. And that's what led to the release of all the DNC emails. And that could have pushed people to change their vote in the 2016 elections. So these go to the highest levels of government. And, you know, no one is exempt, and they can have profound consequences.
You know, you have to keep in mind that money drives this. You know, back in the 30s, there was infamous bank robber Willie Sutton, and when he was finally caught, the legend goes, FBI agent said, "So Willie, why do you rob banks?" And he said, "That's where the money is." You know what? The internet is where the money is. And if you don't think so, think about the e-commerce that's going on now because stores are closed or limited access. So, yeah, and I'm too smart. In one of the presentations, we have an interview with a stockbroker from from Georgia, and he fell for an investment scheme that he lost $40,000 on, and he said, "I did everything wrong. Everything that I tell people not to do, I did." 2 master's degrees. Intelligence is not the issue. Common sense is. And when you lose common sense when you're dealing with these people, you're at a disadvantage. The other thing they love to do is get little bits of information about you. We had a woman in Lenox, Mass, who was on an online relationship with a scammer. It started off on a dating website. He then convinced her to take it off the website and just do personal email exchanges. And after about 18 months, yeah, we always think, you know, this is the IRS calling you, and it's a one-time deal. This was an 18-month event where he finally got around to asking her for money, and she ultimately said no, and he said, "Fine, I'm going to come up and I'm going to burn your house down." And luckily, I guess, he did drive up to Lenox from Mount Vernon, New York. He used an Uber car, which seems weird. He wanted $1,500. He told her, I'm going to kill you and burn your house down if you don't go to the bank right now. She went to the bank. Teller said she didn't look right. And she said, well, there's a guy out in the car who wants me to give him $1,500. Teller called the police and they arrested him. So, it happens. She wasn't a stupid lady. Smart people get scammed. And the best target in this country is, and this one's always a shocker to people, it's a male 45 to 60 years old with a master's degree.
I'm doomed.
You know why? Who are the decision makers in the U.S.? College educated people in that age bracket. They have money, and that makes them attractive. So, you're going to get my email address, which is pretty simple. It's egreenblott@aarp.org. And Greenblott spelled Greenblott. I welcome your questions. Any requests that you have, we can send literature to you, or I can just respond via email. Spend a lot of time on the computer doing this stuff.
Elliott, when you can, this is Mike Day. When you have the opportunity, you can email me the slides,
Right.
presentation, and I will distribute that. Okay.
Yeah, there's some things I want to take out that are not necessary.
No problem.
But we'll make it into
Very good.
A decent PDF folder.
Great.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank
All
you
right.
for inviting me.
All right, that wraps things up. Next week, we're going to have the district governor at our meeting, so that will be exclusively his meeting. But it'll be good. He's a nice guy. I've talked to him, and hope everyone can hop on there. All right, thanks. Have a good week. Talk to everyone later.
Hi, everybody.
Later.